Zach's chomping.
Derbyites, we're here to talk about the drama categories. For me, these are the ones closest to my black soulless heart. And there's a lot to talk about because there's some stuff coming back and there's some new shows. And look, let's just get straight to the point. Handmaid's Tale is probably coming back. Many of us, some of us have seen the first episode. Some of us haven't seen it yet. It's amazing. Better Call Saul's not eligible. House of Cards is not eligible. There's 2 slots already open, but that means really there's only 1 slot because Game of Thrones is coming back, so that adds a whole new dimension to this race. The Crown's in. Stranger Things is there. This Is Us is there, and Westworld's coming back very shortly as well. It's an extremely exciting category to talk about. There's also The Americans. I've currently got Handmaid's Tale in number 1 just as a default for now, but I don't think it's got it in the bag at all because obviously now the show it's on its own. It's not the book, and they could really totally stuff it up. Who knows? I doubt it. But Game of Thrones had a very strong season. This Is Us, as far as I'm concerned, is just incredible this season. I love it. And, yeah, I'm totally confused. So I'm going to Zach first. What do you reckon?
So I've got a pretty conservative lineup for my 7 nominees. I'm going with Handmaid's Tale, Game of Thrones, This Is Us, The Crown, The Americans, Stranger Things, and Westworld. So basically every show that has either been nominated before or won before. But here's what's interesting. Okay, so Handmaid's Tale not only won last year, but it swept. And you can chalk it up to a couple of different reasons. The fact that Game of Thrones wasn't eligible that year, the fact that it was sort of it came on at the sort of preamble to the Me Too movement. And now Me Too is, of course, like the thing that everybody is talking about. So maybe that helps it win again. But also, I think they just really liked the show. So the question is, if Game of Thrones was in last year, would Handmaid's Tale still have won? And with Game of Thrones back, does that mean Handmaid's Tale loses? But here's the other thing about Game of Thrones. By the time the nominations come out, it'll have been, what, a year since they last aired? And no new episodes until 2019? Is it going to get kind of overlooked? Is it going to be kind of like yesterday's news? I agree with you that Handmaid's has not got this in the bag. I could honestly see This Is Us winning.
Yeah.
They had a very good second season, a very buzzed about episode that aired after the Super Bowl, and they just won the SAG Ensemble Prize over The Handmaid's Tale, which feels pretty significant. And I wonder also about perhaps The Americans, which is in its final season. Maybe that it gets that last season bump that we have seen for a drama series before. So it's an exciting race in some ways.
Okay, what about Tony? Because I was also going to mention that Trust is on FX, and that could be a player. But Tony, what do you think?
I think Zach's is exactly right, and I think the thing to also be concerned about with Game of Thrones is with Game of Thrones, when it won both drama series, it also had such buzz around it both years because it had these big episodes. It had these big monumental episodes that were the talk of Hollywood, whether it was, Battle of the Bastards or episodes like that. With so much time gone, there's been so much other stuff going on in terms of buzz that Game of Thrones might end up seeming, for lack of a better word, slight in comparison to something that has more relevance, something like The Handmaid's Tale. And again, depending on what that second season does, it's certainly airing at the right time so that it is fresh in the minds. And you're exactly right with the cachet of something like Trust, which is from Danny Boyle. Now, there's just so many variables that I don't think that we can call anything a sure bet. But I do worry that that a show like Game of Thrones or even This Is Us might seem, as popular as they are with, say, the actors. Is that going to feel like the right? Is that going to be the message vote? The Handmaid's Tale very much last year seemed like a message vote. Like, this show feels so relevant in our times. Are they going to want to then go back to something lighter or something more fantasy driven? So it's a big question to see what this year is going to hold for drama series.
I think that's a good question as to, was Handmaid's Tale success last year driven by just the Academy being in love with that show and just being very passionate about their show? They clearly liked it. I'm not trying to say they didn't like it. Or was it driven by this is the show for this year. This is what we feel encapsulates and reflects this year. And we really like Game of Thrones, but we can't vote for that this year. Let's put our attention on The Handmaid's Tale. And I guess that question will sort of be answered this year. Shows don't win 2 Best Drama Series awards unless they're shows that the Academy is passionate about and they love that show for what it is. So I think if Handmaid's Tale wins again, it'll be, like Sopranos or Game of Thrones or Mad Men or West Wing or Practice, which is a show that they've really connected, or Breaking Bad, a show that the Academy's really, really high on.
But if I can just make this one quick point, because this just popped into my head. On the heels of, you have to remember when The Handmaid's Tale won last year, it was before Me Too and Time's Up. And then you have Frances McDormand at the Oscars with The Inclusion Writer, and that's becoming such a big, that really has kind of taken hold. Could Handmaid's Tale actually build on that? Is it even more relevant now? Depending on what the content of the season is, the movement could lift that show up even more this year.
If it's more relevant, then why did it get skunked at the SAG Awards?
That's my own.
That's the problem.
Who knows?
Is that in the midst of the Time's Up movement, it lost Best Actress and Best Ensemble. And that's a big problem. Now, it might have just run out of steam because it's been over a year at that point since it's aired. But I think the thing you have to remember about Game of Thrones is it's going to rack up a lot of nominations. And this is the one thing I want to see This Is Us do, and that is learn from their mistake last year. Submit the Super Bowl episode for writing and directing only, and I will predict you to win Best Drama Series.
I agree.
Because I think it could just come straight up the middle and win. And isn't the Emmys on NBC this year?
Yes.
Yeah, I think NBC would love to close the night with the drama series winner, and this is their best opportunity, but they're going to have to sit the writers and directors down and go, look, we think you're all great. It's nothing personal, but we're only submitting this episode because we want to win. And they need a writing and directing nomination, and there's your drama series winner.
Statistically, they need a writing and directing nomination, but it doesn't change the votes, does it? It does.
I think it shows that they have the support. They just won SAG Ensemble.
But you still have support from the directors branch if 100 directors are split over 5 submissions and none of them end up getting nominated. Then if 100 directors
always done is submit their most buzzed about episode for writing. Yeah. They only submit one for writing. They probably submit a few for.
They have one.
I think submitting one episode for writing and directing rallies all their support. So getting into those categories makes it look like more of a front runner to win.
So it makes it look like a viable contender. And
the optics of it, the optics.
So we stop predicting it at Gold Derby if it doesn't get a nomination in those 2 categories, and therefore people don't vote for it to win.
That's what happens. Cycle. You brought up the number of nominations that Game of Thrones is probably going to get, and that made me think about the show that got the most nominations last year, which is Westworld, which we haven't seen any of yet. Do you think, with these both being in a similar vein, and again, I haven't seen season 2 of Westworld, looking forward to it very much. But could it steal some of Game of Thrones' thunder in a lot of those below the line nominations? And let's not forget, it got acting nominations in all 4 categories as well. So
that's only going to happen this year if they promote somebody to lead.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, do you think that maybe those two, I mean, could one be more popular than the other? And in that case, could it be Westworld? I don't know.
I think HBO wants to bolster Game of Thrones, personally. I mean, that is their flagship show at the moment.
Westworld is more about the future of HBO. True. Like, like if they can get Westworld a best drama series win, then they are looking set up for the next sort of 5 years of Emmys or 4 years of Emmys, rather than Game of Thrones, which this is sort of their second last go. That being said, HBO, and I think Netflix were the same last year, have a bit of a history of not wanting to show favoritism too much in their campaigning. Usually they do spread their campaign efforts across their nominees and shows, and they've always had, and people said that was an issue back in years when you had 6 Feet Under and Sopranos competing, that they should have just picked one and thrown their weight behind that. And I think maybe that was an issue with Netflix last year, having sort of 3 drama series contenders where Hulu only had one. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I feel like HBO will give a lot of support to whoever is nominated. And if they both
have 50 nominations between just those 2 shows, like they could really, seriously.
I think Westworld, as good as it will be, or maybe, to me, it feels like it will always be a bit of an also-ran while Game of Thrones is still on. And I think, to me, the only contenders for the win, and this is very preliminary, Handmaid, Game of Thrones, and This Is Us at this point. That's just my feeling. And even though Marcus Dixon says that Stranger Things Season 2 was better than Season 1, which is ridiculous, that's going to do pretty well. The Crown will still do very well. They're all great. Which is
a shame, because The Crown Season 2 actually was much better than Season 1. And I love Season 1.
I don't know.
I loved Season 2. I thought again, if we were going back to the tape system, Claire Foy pre-seeing whatever Elizabeth Moss has.
Come on.
In The Handmaid's Tale, Claire Foy has an absolutely brilliant submission this season.
I think that Claire Foy becoming a 2-time SAG Award winner really helps her, because in the SAG Award history, with the exclusion of Juliana Margulies for ER, she won before there were SAG Awards.
So
all of those women have won Emmys.
Yeah, I just quickly, I think Stranger Things and The Crown had better seasons in Season 2 than Season 1. However, I would say that probably with Stranger Things last year was their year to win. And I think it's going to be harder for them to win this year. The Crown, who knows? I think the problem is those shows both had good seasons, and it's going to be hard for one of them to get ahead of Handmaid's Tale and Game of Thrones. But we'll see how the race goes and how momentum might change throughout the course of the season. Maybe the wheels will start falling off the wagon halfway through Handmaid's Tale season, and then all of a sudden we start to readjusting where we're placing things. So it's a bit hard to say, but
Go ahead.
I was just, but before we move on, I mean, I think Trust is the only new show that we even brought up. I mean, is there like Ozark or The Deuce or my personal favorite new drama series, Mindhunter? Do any of those have a chance at all?
I think Ozark has a chance of getting a nomination, and Mindhunter has a chance of getting a nomination. I think winning, it's going to be a stretch for those shows.
Yeah. What about The Good Doctor or Rise or The Good Fight? Are all of those just going to be also rans? I think they will be.
I think The Good Doctor could possibly get in. It is the most popular new show of the season, just from a ratings perspective. If it gets in, it's going to be basically coasting on the popularity of Freddie Highmore.
I don't have him getting in.
No.
Okay, Homelander, Mr. Robot.
That's right. I think Mr. Robot is done. It's done and dusted, unfortunately, for that show.
There seems to be one open slot in the nominees.
Yeah, and
I think Americans has a great season. It could just
Trust
sneak back in.
Yeah.
I wonder if Trust will get put in the miniseries race if they decide, if like the Emmy panel goes.
I don't know. They're saying it's 3 seasons, definitely 3 seasons about the dynasty, same characters. I think it's drama, no matter what. That's what
I don't think Trust is going anywhere.
I'm seeing
I've
it's
seen the
hard.
first 3 episodes. It has 65 on Metacritic. There's, it's peak TV. We've got a lot of good TV.
I
We don't need
totally agree with
to-
Riley. I don't think it's very. I'm sorry. I just.
I think that
and the
Ozark
Good
is the most
Doctor.
like
I mean, like
The Good
The
Doctor
Walking
is
Dead, NCIS, like the high ratings, they don't necessarily
Yeah,
mean
that's right.
anything.
It's probably
I've got Mindhunter in my 7th slot. Mindhunter is really underperformed at all the
Yeah.
precursors, but it's got good reviews. I think people saw it. I think people liked it.
It's great.
I maybe it's just one of those cases like Master of None where it came out like kind of late in the year, kind of missed all the precursors, but at the end of the day, it made enough sense on paper that it was able to connect at the Emmys. The obvious choice is The Americans because it is the final season. And yeah, like you'd think that being the final season, there would be quite a bit of momentum in the story that it would compel people who snubbed it last year to bring it back. I'd say based off the first 3 episodes that I saw, there was actually no momentum.
Yeah.
The season that most resembles is actually
I'd
the
be
one.
leading up to those last few episodes. I mean,
It
Kerry
could, but I
Russell
mean-
could Kyle Chandler himself into a win.
I'm just not really sure why, if you're at the final season, why you would wait until the middle of the final season to really get things
Ramp
going.
it up.
Anyway,
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the trailer that looked pretty exciting that I did not see. But based on those 3 episodes, it looks like last season. And also, we have to remember that when The Americans was nominated, the only time that ever was, it was at a time before we had these 5 brand new shows come in. So it's a completely different landscape now, and it's trying to get back into something that's more competitive.
Yeah.
See the 7 slot go to Homeland.
What about Ozark? I mean, if Ozark's going to get Jason Bateman and Laura Linney in, then it might have just enough support to squeak out that 7th notch.
Yeah, I'm starting to think
Yeah.
Ozark could be the show.
Really?
Riley, you gave me help for Mindhunter. So.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue into the acting.
We really do have to move on. Yeah. Let's go to the lead actress first. The only actress who can't return, obviously, is Robin Wright. So Evan Rachel Wood, Kerry Russell, Claire Foy, Viola Davis, and Elizabeth Moss can all return and most likely will return. I don't know necessarily. No one does. But I think Mandy Moore has a really good shot. I think Emilia Clarke, if she's being submitted in lead, has a really good shot. Who else? Who else is there? I'm not sure if Elizabeth Moss can win again. From what I've seen, she could. But Claire Foy obviously has a really good shot as well. But what do you think?
Tatiana Maslany won the
She did.
last time she was eligible in this category. So I know that it aired a while ago, so that's not going to help her. But you can't rule out someone who won 2 years ago and wasn't eligible last year. I think she's...
I don't know. Do you think she'll be forgotten? I have a feeling she could be.
She
Possibly.
could be, but I think the good news, I think for Claire Foy, like all of that Matt Smith stuff only helps her. It only makes it a rallying cry to like really finally vote for her, on top of the fact that it would be a real tragedy for these other actors just across the board to come in and who are a little bit more well-known, to take on the roles of like Claire Foy and Vanessa Kirby and even Matt Smith to a point have fostered for 2 years, and then watch Hugh Laurie come in next year and win and get nominated for lead actor or for supporting actress. So I think there might be like enough support for Claire Foy to maybe take this. And the good news is she finally beat Elizabeth Moss head to head.
She did.
But it was for the first season. So
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, speaking of Time's Up, that's certainly been a point of contention for people. That the fact that the Queen, the star of the show, is getting paid less money than
Shocking.
her co-star. So maybe, I mean, that could be enough to help her beat Elizabeth Moss. I feel like, you're right. I mean, Elizabeth Moss, there was also the overdue factor in that last year, that she had gotten, 8 nominations or something like that and had never won before. So that was working in her favor. Now Claire Foy is not only the overdue one, but also the one who is not going to be coming back next year because she's being recast. So I think that could work in her favor. But I mean, otherwise as of right now, I've got all of the 5 returning coming back. I guess, maybe Viola Davis is the most vulnerable, but I don't see her dropping out until she does. I think I've just got I think the last slot is between Laura Linney, Mandy Moore, or possibly Emilia Clarke, but I'd say either Linney or maybe if Mandy Moore gets nominated here, I think This Is Us has a good chance of winning Best Drama Series. I'll say that.
Fingers crossed. Who hasn't had a chance to talk about actor before we move on? Actress, sorry, before we move on.
I think so.
Viola Davis is going to fall out. I mean, she fell out of SAG last year, which was surprising, and she still had her Oscar momentum, and now there's, I think, neither of those apply.
I think it'll be interesting to see what the Game of Thrones actors do, Amelia and Kit. They sort of had a bit of they tested themselves in the lead race at the Golden Globes, which it makes a lot of sense to, because you don't have drama and comedy in supporting, so it's a bit of a, in some ways, less competition, and neither got nominated. So it was a bit of a failed experiment.
But they don't like that show very much. So I think that, for them, they really have been getting nominated, especially Emilia Clarke. So she could definitely get in there. And then look out, if that's one of those, especially with her and Kit Harington, if they get in and Game of Thrones goes on a run, they could automatically.
Let's not get his hopes up again. What? I said let's not get poor. Yeah, let's not get poor Kit Harington's hopes up again.
I also think that it's going to be very hard for an Emilia Clarke to take down Elizabeth Moss or Claire Foy or Kerry Russell, who are so at the center. I don't know. I think that'd be a bit of a stretch. I think, though, Emilia Clarke could have an outside chance of winning a supporting race, which is could be the tough spot she's in, where she's got a better chance of getting nominated for lead, but a better chance of winning supporting.
Okay, so let's move on to the actors, if we could. So last year, again, if you look at who was nominated last year, the only ones that can't return are Bob Odenkirk and Kevin Spacey, and who wouldn't return anyway even if the show was number one. Because obviously when you do something wrong, you just go away forever. Apparently that's how it works. So Sterling K. Brown won last year. I can imagine him winning again easily. Anthony Hopkins, Matthew Rhys, Liev Schreiber.
Anthony Hopkins isn't coming back, is he?
If Milo Ventimiglia can get nominated, please, I would love to see him in. I love that character in that show. That's just a personal view. I don't
think Anthony Hopkins is not in season 2
of
of
Westworld.
Westworld.
That was a question I had. I wasn't sure. I haven't been following Westworld's development for season 2. I didn't really know whether he was in or not. So he's out.
Who knows? He could be back as a robot. Who knows?
It's one of those things that, if we were under the tape system, just thinking about the This Is Us men, I think Sterling K. Brown would submit number 3, and Milo would submit the Super Bowl. Milo Ventimiglia would automatically win that.
He would own this category.
This would be a sure thing. I think he might be Sterling K. Brown's biggest competition. I think Milo could take this. His character's had a lot of buzz.
Unfortunately, the votes. We'll talk about vote splitting, and that's what will happen there if they both get nominated again. So the people who could come in as well, by the way, are, as we said, Kit Harington, and Jason Bateman is probably the best shot for Ozark across the board. Who else? Do we think that anyone else has a chance? Mindhunter. I mean, that would be amazing.
He won the Satellite Award, so there's that.
That's a done deal, right?
As goes the Satellite Award, goes the Emmy.
There's also, Donald Sutherland in a role that just got Christopher Plummer an Oscar nomination.
True.
So, depending on,
and he's actually the lead.
Yeah, actually, yeah. And so, that's definitely a possibility. Did we mention Freddie Highmore?
Matt Smith.
Yeah, Matt Smith. I have Jonathan Groff in as part wishful thinking, but he also is very good in the show. He really carries it. I agree with you guys about Milo. He could either be a potential winner, or he could cause an actual vote split this year. I think that last year Sterling was just so far out in front because season 1 was so much about him, dealing with the death of his biological father, that it really it made it his season. This season is all about Jack dying, and so that could help Milo. It can either help him win, or it could make him such a formidable threat that he does indeed split the vote with Sterling K. Brown, in which case I'm not sure who wins out of this group. Maybe, I guess I got Jason Bateman at number 3. I could see him being a spoiler for it.
Well,
Matthew Reese.
Matthew Reese pulls a Kyle Chandler and wins for the final.
I would love that, but I want it to be Kerry Russell. But
it could be both. We never know.
It's ironic. It's ironic too because again, going by the tapes last year, I actually thought that Milo had a winning tape last year. I thought his tape was better than Sterling's. But I agree that if he submits the Super Bowl, I agree that if he submits the Super Bowl episode, that's certainly a winning tape. Another person to possibly look out for is J.K. Simmons,
that's who I was going to mention.
Who stars on the show Counterpart, where he plays two characters, oftentimes with himself.
He's fantastic on that show.
That is an absolute. That show is a hoot. That show is an absolute hoot.
But he's actually got the talent to back it up. So
Stars, man.
I think that for Stars, and like Rob and I spend a lot of time discussing this because of Outlander. I think if like Stars goes, okay, he's our best chance, and they just throw everything into getting him nominated, that could happen. I mean, that would be a very big deal for them to finally crack a series race, because they couldn't get Cloris Leachman into guest last year. Shocking. Like getting J.K. Simmons in would at least kind of start making them look like a legitimate network as far as a contender is concerned. And he is great on that show. And I'm not just saying that because I get emails to watch it early.
I know.
Although that does not hurt.
And they've got Howard's End and a whole bunch of things. I'm hoping for Stars that will actually crack into
Tobias Menzies, guest actor, Outlander.
I know. Look, we haven't talked about Outlander, but I mean, obviously, it'd be nice to see Katrina Balfe get a nomination. That ain't probably going to happen. Sorry, Outlander fans. All right, we've got to move on because we really do have to go. Let's continue with the actors. Supporting actor in a drama. Again, if you think about who was nominated last year. I'm just pulling it up now. So John Lithgow's not eligible. Jonathan Banks is not, but David Harbour is. I'm not sure about Ron Cephas-Jones, who probably go guest.
He doesn't have enough stuff to do.
Yeah. Mark Kelly's not in there. Mandy Patinkin could make it in inexplicably again, and Jeffrey Wright. I'm not sure what's going on there as well.
Mandy Patinkin's pretty good this year.
Yeah, I just don't know if they still watch Homeland.
I think Justin Hartley is going to take Ron.
I really hope so. I really hope so.
I think that, really, out of everyone, he was such a good team player last year. He was the only member of the Pearson family that didn't get a nomination of some kind. And number one, I'll say it was better than Sterling K. Brown's episode. That monologue at the end is what wins Emmys. And he delivers.
He's amazing.
Well, he definitely had a better season this year. He had a lot more to do this year than he had last year, to say the least. I mean, it was a rough year for Kevin, starting out with that whole drug addiction thing. I have him getting in right now. I also, because so many empty slots for one thing, and also for a good season.
But Peter Dinklage comes back.
Oh yeah, Peter Dinklage. We can't.
And with Kit Harington out of there, Nikolai Kojai-Waldo, he had a great season, telling his sister off at the end, or even the episode with the Queen of Thorns, he was pretty good in. So,
well, we don't know for sure that Kit Harington's out of there. I don't think they've made official placements yet, have they?
I don't know. But
I'm assuming he's going to be supporting.
Yeah.
Well, unofficially, he could still get in there, and then there's the Handmaid's Tale gentleman.
Who does everybody have winning right now? I have David Harbour just out of
Peter Dinklage.
I have David Harbour too.
I'm David Harbour
in season 2, man. And what about our best mate, Noah Schnapp? Like maybe he might get nominated. I've got him in number 6.
I've got him in 5th at the moment.
Good.
Yeah,
Good,
so Noah Schnapp could be in.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got him in 4. Only because I'm too chicken to predict a kid winning. But if I were picking who I'd want to win, I think Noah Schnapp was the absolute far and away MVP of season 2.
No, he was fantastic.
I think David Harbour was better than David Harbour.
I think David Harbour would be a great winner too, though, and there seems to be a lot of industry support for him and his performance, and the show did very well at the Emmys last year.
For Noah Schnapp really hurt me personally. So that gives me some pause, and the kid thing is unfortunate because he deserves to be nominated. He was excellent. So who else is there that we haven't raised yet? What about Ed Harris?
I
Yeah, I
have him
think he's-
getting in by default right now, but I don't
I do
know
too.
what.
Yeah, he could
Also-
win.
Yeah,
If he has a great season, Ed Harris could definitely win an Emmy.
I want Jeffrey Wright. If anyone's going to win from Westworld in this category, I want to see Jeffrey Wright make
Yeah.
Emmy history. He'll be the first. It's the last category without an African American or Black winner. So look out for him.
It could really depend whether, like, what we're really, and this is hard to call who's going to win at this stage, or we haven't seen Jeffrey Wright or Ed Harris, both very respected, great actors on a show that did very well at the Emmys last year with nominations.
And one of them could be promoted to lead without Anthony Hopkins in there. Yeah.
Yeah,
there's
I guess we
also, there's also Brendan Fraser in Trust. He's making a big comeback.
His Me Too moment too. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
he'll probably win the Golden Globe.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm
Sorry, I know that's inappropriate. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I mean, but it's true. I mean, and to an extent. There's also some Emmy favorites here. I'm just looking at the list of eligible contenders. Richard Schiff and The Good Doctor.
Yeah.
Never count out John Voight, I guess, from Ray Donovan.
That's it.
That's not going to happen.
Or
really?
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of nice with not only so many open slots, but also last year's winner not being in here. There's some flexibility.
Is anyone from The Crown in the mix here in supporting actor?
I think it's Matthew Good going guest or supporting.
Yeah, he'll be guest.
He'll be
The only
guest.
one that
Yeah,
is-
the guest category is where to look out for The Crown because that Mr. Kennedy episode has 5 people that could literally
that's right.
be nominated for the same episode.
I'm saying, like, if they move Matt Smith down to supporting, he would have a shot at winning.
100%.
Even though he got paid as a lead.
That's awful.
That's
I'll
true.
say that we should watch out for Joseph Fiennes. I mean, last year nobody was predicting him, but nobody was predicting Samira Wiley and Dowd, and also for the show to go on to win 3 acting Emmys. So in hindsight, it kind of doesn't add up that he didn't get in.
Okay.
And the show, it was acclaimed its first season. It's the kind of show that you would think would get more nominations its second year.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's move on to actress in a supporting role. They could all return, I think. So Ann Dowd, Uzo Aduba, Millie Bobby Brown, Chrissy Metz, Tandy Newton, and Samira Wiley. I've got some of those coming back. Maybe Lena Headey, maybe Alexis Bledel, who won the guest actress category. She is now in supporting. Poor old Offlin is off in the colonies, and we've got lots to look forward to with her character. So I've just rattled off the names that I think are in the mix. Anybody else?
Maisie Williams.
Maisie
we
Williams.
could see Game of Thrones and Handmaid's Tale just run this category themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a very strong possibility. But hey, if only 3 and 2 get in, and Chrissy Metz is there, she looks really good to maybe take this herself.
That's actually who I have winning right now is
really
Chrissy Metz.
That's finale.
That's
She's
who I
so
have.
good.
That's what I have too.
So good. in the finale.
I mean, again, I think a lot of, this season of This Is Us gave everybody a lot more to do. And certainly Chrissy, I mean, the whole wedding storyline and her having her miscarriage, it was a whirlwind of emotions for that character. So she's got a lot of good stuff that she can work with. And yeah, I mean, Ann Dowd, I don't know how prominently she's going to be featured in this season, or if maybe that was a one-time thing. I don't know how many of the...
Sorry, I just had a question. Is Margot Martindale going guest or supporting? Because we could have the twins face off each other.
Well, she'll be in Sneaky Pete.
I have no idea.
She could get nominated for Sneaky Pete.
That was a good question. I thought for certain she was going to get nominated last year for the Americans, but
aren't they the same person? Sorry, I just.
They could present together. Wouldn't that be? I'm sorry. I just had that thought of what if they both
bring
had
it up
to face
every year? It ain't gonna happen. Anybody else want to talk about?
Yeah, I'll say this category is really exciting because, I think we will get another Winona Ryder situation as last year, somebody who we're certain is going to get in. But yeah, there's just too many shows because normally I would predict Game of Thrones would get, 4 actresses in, Emilia Clarke, Maisie Williams, Lena Headey. And I would think that they would bring in Sophie Turner, at this point in the show's run, given her material, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the same thing can be said for The Handmaid's Tale, where they'll get, Ann Dowd, possibly Alexis Bledel will move up, and then Yvonne Strahovski is the most prominent supporting actress on the show, so you'd think that she'd get in. Maybe Madeline Brewer. Like, there are tons of contenders here. I'm actually predicting Vanessa Kirby to come in for The Crown because I think people really responded to her storyline in the second season. And I have Chrissy Metz falling out, which is quite in contrast to your guys' prediction for winning, because I think in the second season of This Is Us, they're very focused on Mandy Moore, gave a lot to My Love and Amelia and Justin Hartley, and Sterling K. Brown, he always gets his share. So I feel like Chrissy Metz actually fell by the wayside this year, and somebody's going to be snubbed for sure in this category. I'm just worried that
she had a miscarriage and a wedding. That's not
I do want to add
one
more name.
That was more
one
than
more
that
name.
in an episode.
But
of
even in her episodes, she was kind of in the background, like the miscarriage, it would be through the eyes of Toby or something. Or
I think
her
the wedding was better.
She wouldn't actually be delivering her vows. They'd be cutting to some, fake renewal of wedding vows or something.
I want to add one more name to this, just to throw in a little controversy. Denai Guria on The Walking Dead. If they were smart and they only submitted her, hold on, she's in Black Panther. She's one of the breakouts of a $500 million movie. She might be their one and only chance, but it's probably not going to happen. I'm just stirring the pot.
I was going to say, is The Walking Dead still on?
Is it on?
Come on, guys. It's not a bad point to just say,
No,
I'm joking.
she's going to be in a movie that's going to make $1 billion.
Does anybody know if Hilary Swank is going supporting a lead for Trust? Because she's
not in the first episode at all. Doesn't appear.
She's in 8 of the 10 episodes, so she's going probably lead, but she could be supporting. I don't know.
It makes me.
She's quite good.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a toss-up.
I
can see her going lead on name recognition alone.
Yeah.
But if she's not featured prominently in the show, then I could see her case for supporting as well.
Yeah.
There's also, sorry, I was going to Uzo Aduba.
Yeah.
Orange is the New Black. She's won before, so I wouldn't count her out ever.
Yeah, we've not talked about Orange at all. Would you all agree it didn't have a great season, and I think it's going to get completely wiped for the first time. What do we think about that?
No Laverne Cox?
No, I don't think. I think it just the consensus appears to be that its last season was not great.
It wouldn't be a shock because it's not like it's done really well in nominations the past couple of years anyway. True. So it could just it has sort of been whimpering out a bit since, in some ways, hurt quite a bit by the whole comedy drama flip, perhaps.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And Uzo did fall out when there was a lot of competition before. So she could, but she could be, in a vulnerable position because these others are probably going to be in nominated dramas.
So we haven't seen Tandy Newton yet, but I have a feeling that Westworld Season 2 will be very much focused on Maeve, the character.
Yeah.
And I think we should watch out for her. I have Millie Bobby Brown in number 1 just as a temporary placeholder, but I'm thinking Tandy Newton might be my real contender, who I thought was the real contender last year, and then we all got surprised by Ann Dowd. We should be looking out for Tandy Newton, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I like that.
I picked her last year, and that didn't work out, so I'm a little pissed.
Yeah, that's so right.
I'm worried that she's going to get snubbed. I'm more worried about that than thinking that she'll win. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, that would be terrifying. My favorite moment of last year's whole Emmy season was seeing Ann Dowd up on stage winning her Emmy. So I'm happy for her to win again. We'll see what happens. It's very early on. I think we've pretty much covered drama for now, so we might just say goodbye. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Don't forget to stick with Gold Derby. This is where it's at for Emmy season, as per usual.
Thanks, Rob.